Now, the thing about podcasts is that you record them at a specific moment in time, and you picture that your listeners are also listening to them at that same time. But from my analytics, I know that people often listen months later. This podcast is going out mid-August. Now, that's when lots of people will be on holidays, and it's the second one around a similar theme. In the previous episode, we heard from Larry and Vince, and they talked all about how tech teams have evolved and the skills that they'd spotted that organizations were looking for in aspiring leaders. Today's episode is the second half. We talk with Adam, who's a leadership coach, and we get his leadership nuggets. We hear about the things that aspiring leaders need to be doing as they move from being a team manager into senior leadership. More than anything, this is intended to be actionable content. It's not generalistic, it's very specific. We talk about what you need to be doing and how you can develop those leadership skills. And I hope, especially if you're relaxing next to a pool or on a long journey in the car or on a train, or even if you're just simply blocking out the noise of family members, where all four of you are in a hotel room together and you've had to go to bed at the same time as the kids. I've done this many times. I hope, as ever, that you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed recording it. Hello and welcome to another episode of Virtue and Virtuosity. Today I'm joined by Adam Scoot, who has been on this podcast before. Adam, amongst other things, is a mentor and a leadership coach. Hello, Adam.
Hi, Stuart. Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you. And I'm hoping this is going to be a bit more of a banter than an interview, because I've got lots of views on this, and I know from speaking to you, you've got lots of views on this as well. So you've worked in leadership coaching for quite a while. Can you tell us a little bit around what you see as the important elements of leadership coaching and becoming a great leader?
I think that great leaders, they inherently have a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. Just to think about the two different things. A fixed mindset is rigid thinking. It's doing what you've always done. It's not listening to opinion, and that's about closing down options rather than creating options. The growth mindset, you have an openness to change. You want to collaborate. The focus of your leadership is on the people. It is customer centric. So whatever your business is doing, it is customer centric and focused on the people. And I think that if you want to be a high performing leader, you have to have a growth mindset. And I think the other thing that you really need to have is high levels of emotional intelligence. You need to be able to consider people, and you need to be able to understand what they might be thinking or feeling as you're talking to them. And if you have high levels of emotional intelligence, it allows you to navigate those complex interpersonal dynamics more easily. And it helps you to build stronger relationships within the business. And that leads to much higher performing culture within the business itself.
So this podcast is all around technology leadership within charities. And there's two interesting things you've put forward there. The idea of a growth mindset, and that comes across as quite a business speak. And I wonder how many people within charities will be thinking, oh, well, we've got a growth mindset. Maybe they might be thinking that within a fundraising team. As a technology leader, there'll be a lot of people struggling with, how does that apply to me as a technology leader in a charity? And then the second thing you said was emotional intelligence. And I'm not going to stereotype here, but I am going to stereotype a little bit. So IT leaders, I've worked with a variety of different IT leaders, IT managers, and often when you have someone who is great technically, the emotional intelligence side of things is less good. And I think this is one of the things I've discovered over my time, is that people who are very strong technologists, in terms of they really understand the technology, often struggle. Not always, but they can sometimes struggle with the people leadership side of things. And it's a journey I've been on throughout my career. I started out as a developer working in assembly language and C#, which is about as geeky as you can get. And
COBOL is the only geekier thing than that.
it is the only geekier thing. But what I realized as my career developed was that if I was going to be a successful leader, there was a whole bundle of other skills I needed to grow and I needed to learn along the way. This is about growing yourself, about trying to make sure that you are constantly looking at what you're doing and working out, how can I do more? How can I learn more? How can I engage more? How can I bring in more external sources of feedback, of information, to enable me to deliver and to be more effective in what I do? there's often a stage where you get to as an IT leader where you've got a number of different problems. You've got systems that don't work, you've got compliance issues, you've got team issues, and you've got a whole bundle of support things you're trying to do. And if you're trying to align all of those things, the easiest thing in the world to do is to get bogged down into your firefighting and your business as usual and just wake up each morning and think, okay, what are the problems we've got to solve today? What have we got to do? Okay, da, 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 da. And to just be there as a manager, to coordinating a gang of people to try and fix the problems, to fight the fires as efficiently as possible. But what you're saying is actually, if you want to be a great leader, you've got to pull yourself out of that. You've got to get into this growth mindset where you're thinking, okay, I want to bring in people. I want to look how we can collaborate. I want to get new ideas in. Am I getting the right end of the
Yeah,
stick?
I think so. It's as a leader, you want to be looking at personal growth and personal development. So that growth mindset will focus your attention onto how do you develop yourself as a leader. Are you operating within a servant leadership space? Do you have a feedback culture? Is there coaching and mentoring available in your business?
Can I get you to drill into that a bit? What do you mean by servant leadership?
Servant leadership has 10 principles, I think. It's building community, listening, empathy, healing, awareness, persuasion, conceptualization, foresight, stewardness, and a commitment to the growth of people. I think that's them.
Wow.
Um,
I don't know how you just did that. Literally, whenever I say that there's 5 key things to remember here, and I get as far as about number 3 and I start hesitating. So since that, I've learned to never say anything more than there's 3 things to remember at this point because I can't get beyond 3.
and and the idea of servant leadership is that you are there to serve the people. Your leadership is service to the people. So how do I make a better environment for these people to work in? How do I build an excellent culture that will retain talent? How do I create an environment of feedback, innovation, happiness? As a leader, how do I create that environment and then set direction within that environment? And people find it, or some leaders find it very difficult to devolve the decision-making authority to the people that are doing the work. And that's part of servant leadership. So the people who have the most amount of knowledge, the people who have the most likely ideas that will resolve the problems that the business have are the people that are doing the work every day. If you push authority down to the people and you say, so you now have the authority to make decisions to make this better, here's what we need to achieve, go away and do that. And then if you can't do that, come back and tell me what you need in order to be able to do that, and I will provide it for you. That's that concept of servant leadership.
It's one of the trickiest. Sorry, I'm going off on a slight tangent there.
Mm.
One of the trickiest things you can do in an organization is pushing that decision making downwards. Everyone knows that that's a good idea, I think. Well,
Yeah.
no, most people know in their hearts and their guts that that's a good idea to get that decision making pushed downwards to the people who are most in the middle of the challenge and understand it best. The worst possible thing that I've seen is you have teams who just bounce a decision upwards and you say to them, don't do this, because the people you're bouncing the decision to know less about this topic than you do. And you will probably make a better decision to them than them. And also, they will not enjoy that you've bounced the decision up to them because you're just basically
No.
saying, okay, I'm giving you the problem here. If you can keep that decision lower down, it really helps.
And you're creating a bottleneck. If you are the only person that can make a decision, you are a bottleneck each time a decision needs making. The business is going to slow down each time you need to make a choice. You think about Turn the Ship Around, David Marquette. He took an American nuclear submarine and made it the best nuclear submarine in the entire fleet. It was constantly battle ready. It got the best scores on absolutely everything. If you look at the manual for a nuclear submarine, the captain has to know everything about everything, and he has multiple decisions that need making. And Marquette had this concept of intent. I intend to dive the boat. He never gave another order. He intended to dive the boat. And the people that were doing the work that had the knowledge, so what do you need to do to dive the boat? We need to make sure everyone's on board. We need to make sure the hatch is shut. We need to make sure that the hatch locks are done. We need to make sure that the planes are down, and then we can dive the boat. Okay, so you need to do all of those four things. So I intend to dive the boat. Is the boat ready to dive? Yes, it is. Then carry on, dive the boat. His idea is that you need two things in order to make that happen. You need organizational clarity, and you need technical competence in the people. So the people who are doing the work have to be technically competent and know what they're doing, and they have to have a really good idea of what the organization is aiming for. So that organizational clarity. What is the goal of the thing that you are doing? So as long as you have organizational clarity and technical competence, you can have that concept of servant leadership where you set the direction, you give the vision, and you say to people, go away and do that. Let me know if there's any problems, because they know exactly what they're doing and they're very good at doing it.
And that's a really good takeaway you can give. If I'm an aspiring leader and I have to create an environment of organizational clarity and technical competence, now that's something I can get my head around because I can
Mm,
understand technical competence is about me recruiting great people and persuading them to stay and making sure I give them all of the training that they require to do their role well and understanding, making sure their role is well shaped, all of those things. And then if I talk about organizational clarity, this is an area where charities really can win because charities have this really good ability to describe what they do across the organization. Because when you work in an organization of a charitable nature, most people want to understand how does the organization work? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And there's, you see in staff engagement surveys all the time in charities that there's such a strong connection to the mission of the organization that
mm,
people really buy into that mission. And if you buy into a mission, you want to understand more. You want to understand how that mission is being delivered. And if you're within the technology team, you're at a real advantage because the technology teams solve problems. And to solve those problems well, you need to understand how the mission is being delivered. You need to understand the processes in the organization. You need to understand what the different teams are doing. So that organizational clarity is not too difficult to achieve. And
mm.
yet, I've often seen that it can get missed and forgotten. So, giving it as a very clear thing as a leader, if you can create organizational clarity and technical competence, you are then able to do that thing of giving out intent so you can push decision downwards. That's a
Absolutely.
really clear set of guidelines.
Yeah. It's always really useful to understand what type of leader you are in order to understand what you need to do to grow as a leader. If you think about leadership agility, Bill Joyner, he outlined 5 leadership types. Probably the three most used or most understood within a business are expert leaders, achiever leaders, and catalyst leaders. And within each of those, as a leader, if you can become a catalyst leader, you will be transformational. So you'll have a transformational vision. You'll be about empowerment. You'll be about organizational change, systemic thinking, inclusivity, authenticity, developing focus, that kind of thing, and looking for sustainability within the organization. It it's very difficult to it's very difficult to become a catalyst leader when you're in the lower leadership roles, because you have a tendency to, you are given a vision, you are given a direction, and you have to take a small team or a big team or a department or something like that on the journey that someone else has created for you. You tend to find that catalyst leaders sit in, C roles, so CTO, CIO, CEO, that kind of thing. But a catalyst leader will have been an expert leader and will have been an achiever leader as well, and that knowledge sits inside them, and they can move through those leadership types dependent on the situation that you're facing right now. So sometimes, in the example of an expert leader, you need technical expertise and you need a directive approach. Sometimes it's that short-term focus, limited delegation. The value is in the expertise, and the communication style is quite directive. Sometimes as a leader, it is necessary to do that, dependent on the situation. Sometimes you need to be strategic thinking. You need to be, bringing teams together for collaboration. You need to be thinking about change management, performance focus, that kind of cross-functional leadership role. But you will also lead with empathy, persuasion, and you'll be looking at how do you create learning and development opportunities for people. That you can move through different types of leadership within your leadership journey, and it's good to recognize where you are. For example, when I'm in a leadership role, I tend to move between achiever leader and catalyst leader.
Can I bring this back to the types of aspiring leaders we might see within our charities? I really like
Yeah,
your discussion of how it's a journey there. You go between different leadership styles. My observation is often within tech teams, you get the expert leader as the one of the first ports of call, the places you start out at. Say you've been on working on an IT service desk and you become the service desk leader, or you've been working as a product owner, product manager, or a developer, let's say a developer, and you then become the leader of the software development team. These types of roles are expert leaders, where there's someone who's worked for many years in a particular role. They've really understood that role, they understand how it works, and then they get promoted into a role of leading a team of people doing the same thing. And the challenge, of course, is that what they need to do in this role is they need to make sure it's a team, and that they
absolutely.
can, because they've seen their own role, they can end up in this stage where they're leading lots of individual characters rather than creating a team. And I guess is that part of then you understand about how you have to then grow as a leader. You have to grow into a different style of
Mm.
leader, bring that together to add on extra elements to what you're learning.
Yes, having a leadership coach or a mentor or something like that to work with, so that you can really it's that growth mindset and self-reflection. So what is it that I'm doing? Am I very directive? Is my focus very short term? In which case, if that's the case and I want to grow into a higher leadership style, if I want to become an achiever leader, how can I identify the traits that I am not so good in? How can I develop those traits? How can I grow them? And that's where leadership coaching helps. So if I'm going to work with a leader and I want to know what it is that they want to achieve, but we need to sit down and talk about their leadership style and talk about the challenges that they're having, the opportunities that they see, and then I can start an assessment of where they are, and actually where would be one or two places that would be good to grow. And I think it's important to have some personal values as well. As a leader, you need some self-awareness, you need self-management, and you need to be mindful of the things that you're doing, and you can create personal values out of those, which will help you in your growth mindset and will help you move through those leadership stages.
I think probably for the first 50% of my career, all the things you're talking about, no one had ever let me in on the secret about these things. 15 years ago, this would have been like opening up a Pandora's box for me. I would have been like, this is amazing. There's all sorts of things in here I didn't realize exists. If, as an aspiring leader, you've got someone listening to this podcast out there, what would you recommend to them to do as next steps? They've really enjoyed listening to this. Where could they go within their organization if they want to progress? How could they do this?
The first thing I'd do, I'd point them at two or three books. Turn the Ship Around, David Marquette. Emotion and Life, Robert Plutchik, which is a really good book on emotional intelligence and the emotion wheel. I'd point them at those two. And I'd probably get them to have a look at Leadership Agility by Bill Joyner, all of which we've mentioned so far during this today. I think that's a first step, and a really easy first step as well, because you can read anywhere and you can audiobook that anywhere as well. But I think that actually, if you want to grow, it would be a good idea to engage a coach or a mentor. Leadership coaches, they live and breathe this. They have almost a development map, that, and you can navigate your development with them by using that development map. You've got to be an incredibly honest individual to be as open as you can with yourself, to recognize the places where you need to grow. It's very easy to say you're good at something. It's more difficult to recognize that you're not very good at something. To pinpoint the best things that you can do in order to develop in those areas, because people tend to have left the things that are difficult behind. They're naturally good at one thing, but they're not naturally good at another thing. And you'll in a leadership role, you'll just do more of the things that you're naturally good at, and you may not, because it's hard and it's difficult, and it may not make you feel great about the way that you lead, if you drill into those and really think about the impact that not doing those things has on the organization and the people in the organization. So having a coach or a mentor support you as you go through that journey gives you honest reflection and quality support when you're developing.
That's a good set of guidelines there. Having seen mentoring relationships before and worked in that environment, often one of the challenges with going into a mentoring relationship is not defining what it is you want to get from it. And often, and I'll tell you from having seen other mentors, that people would say, "Oh, I'd like to move on to the next job. I'd like to get. I see myself as in their role." But they don't get specific, and they don't say actually what it is I want to develop my leadership skills so that I can be a great leader within this space, or I can develop these areas, this area. And often that's because people don't quite understand what the role of a CIO, CTO, chief exec, what the role of a finance director or any of the sort of senior leadership roles within an organization. They don't understand what that role is. So they don't understand the skills they need to develop to be good in those roles. But I think one of the simplest things that we're saying here is leadership, understanding what being a great leader so as you can inspire a team of people to deliver is a really important thing. And that will always be something which, if you can grow those skills, will help you because you're then talking about not just what you can give to an organization, is about how you can inspire an entire group of people to work together to give something. And if you can develop those skills through mentoring, that's a really good
Mm,
way forward.
yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. How do you inspire people and create an environment that is conducive to excellence, I suppose? They're not necessarily skills that have been taught to you as you've progressed through team leadership roles and departmental leadership roles.
They're definitely not skills, and I said this is something that I see in organizations. Is often organizations are good at identifying leaders at the top end of the company and giving them support, but the aspiring leaders, the people maybe the junior manager level or something like that,
Mm-mm.
who are really keen to learn, they're much harder for the organization to spot. And it's so easy to end up just giving them some of the more simple, more functional, technical training, which pushes them more into the expert leader box. Whereas giving them the opportunity to get mentoring and leadership coaching is something which could help them progress so much. They could learn so much from it more quickly.
It's very rare that at that level, people have an understanding of pivotal conversations. How do I go away and have really good conversations in challenging situations? And how am I able to express my feelings and the impact of behavior on that situation? How can I talk to the people in my team about the things that they are doing and the way that they're behaving and the impact that that is having? I don't think there's enough at a lower leadership level about pivotal conversations like that. How do I do this well and come out with a good response where people don't feel attacked for doing something that maybe they didn't know was wrong, but has a detrimental impact on the team or the business? When people are interacting in a poor quality way within that team. And I think having some experience in undertaking pivotal conversations in a training environment, rather than so that they're not stepping into it straight away, would be really beneficial. And if you think about linking pivotal conversations with powerful questions to really bring out from the people where the challenges and opportunities are, I think that would be very useful. And I think, and it wouldn't take much. You could do 1 hour trainings with small groups of people just for pivotal conversations and powerful questions, which would create it would really impact on the culture of the business. because those leaders are starting to think in a more empathic way.
And I'm going to flip this around now to the CIOs, the CTOs. So we've been talking about aspiring leaders, but if you're sitting there in a leadership role at the moment, and what you've heard what we said about pushing the decisions down, which you know intrinsically is the right thing to do. But if you're not building those leaders at the lower level, you will struggle to do that. You won't get those decisions pushing down. And so it is your job as a CIO, as a CTO, as a director to be building those leaders within your team. And we're not just talking about building the leaders, the people who as a direct reports into you, but think about the levels below that. How can you build that leadership mindset within the people lower down in the team? And if you can do that, that's when you're going to have a really great team. So this is I'm bringing this full circle now back to the exec leaders at the top, saying, look, what you really need to be doing is thinking about how can you be growing those skills, those leadership skills of the people within your team, right from the bottom all the way up to the top of your team. And if you can do that successfully, you will see the performance of your team, of what you're able to achieve. You will see that moving ahead quite rapidly.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think if you're in a C role and you look at your organization, and if you say to yourself, when was the last time I had feedback? And if you don't know when the last time you had feedback was from, who it was from and when it was, then it's probably worth thinking about the culture and the environment that you have created as a leader. So, we want fast feedback loops. We want decision making being pushed down. We want adaptability. We want innovation. Um, we want happiness in the workplace. We want the workplace to be adaptable, to be able to change very quickly, and people to expect change. And if you're in one of those leadership roles and you walk onto the office floor and just randomly pick a person and say, what's our goal? They should know that. They should know what the goal of the organization is. They should know what the vision is, because as an excellent leader, you would have created that vision and said it over and over and over and over again until you thought that you'd said it too much, and then said it some more, and then finally it gets instilled into the minds of the people. And that's the organizational clarity that you need as one of those pillars for creating a great leadership environment.
I love that, Adam, and I think it's a great place to wrap up there. You've given me now three. I'm not going to do my 5 or my 10 points. I'm going to do my 3 highlights here because that's all I can remember. But the 3 highlights I picked up from this were that what you want to do is you want to hire in highly competent people. You then want to create that organizational understanding within your team so as they can actually deliver against that. Then finally, if you can then use your agile coaching and your mentoring to build the leadership skills and make people understand their leadership journey, not just at the top of your team, but all the way through the team. Then bringing those 3 things together will give you a team that is really, really empowered to
Mm.
work together and actually deliver things much more successfully than the group of individuals who are a bit lost. And your final point there around feedback, being able to get that feedback from the team who understand why you're doing what you're doing and how you're doing it and are able to comfortably talk back to you and tell you what's working. That environment will enable you to really succeed.
Yeah, you'll thrive.
That's
You'll thrive.
been really enjoyable, Adam. We kind of come to the end of our time slot now, but thank you very much for joining me. I had a great conversation there, and maybe we'll have more conversations like this in the future.
Oh, that'd be great. Always good to talk to you, Stuart.
Thanks a lot, Adam.